Good morning, dear students of class 12. Welcome to the English online class. Today we are going to take up the lesson, The Last Lesson by Alfonso Dore. Now, yesterday we did the text of the last lesson, part 1. Today we are going to continue further with the lesson. So, as was already discussed, this last lesson is set in the days of the Franco-Prussian War in 1870 to 1871, in which France was defeated by Prussia, led by Bismarck. And in this story, we are reading how the effect of the passing on the two districts of Alsace and Lorraine into Prussian hands, what effect did it have on the people of that place? And especially with regard to the life at school. The lesson begins with Franz, a small school-going boy who was starting for school. He was scared because he was late that morning, and at the same time he dreaded the scolding of his teacher, as his teacher, Mr. M. Hamill, was strict and had asked the students to prepare the lesson on participles. And moreover, Franz had not prepared it. He did not know the first word about them. So he thought of bunking the school that day and spending the day out of doors. The temptation was that the weather was warm, bright, sunny day, and the birds were chirping at the edge of the woods. And in the open field back of the sawmill, Prussian soldiers were drilling. So these were the many attractions which were inviting him, which were tempting him not to attend school. But Franz was a strong-willed child, and he decided to resist all these temptations and instead attend the school and face the scolding of the teacher. As he passed by the town hall, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For last 2 years, all bad news about war, about the lost battles, order of the commanding officer, they were displayed on this bulletin board. So he decided to wait, and then he gave up the idea because he was already late for the school. He met the blacksmith watcher who was with his apprentice reading the bulletin board. And he seemed to check the child and say, "Don't run so fast. You have plenty of time." But Franz thought probably the blacksmith is making fun of him. And when he reached M. Hamill's garden, which was the school premises, he was simply out of breath. The school had begun, and usually when the school began, there used to be great noise, which could be heard in the street, of the opening and closing of desks, lessons being repeated in unison, means all together. So loud that the children studying there had to put their hands over their ears in order to understand better. And the rapping of the teacher's ruler on the table. But today, there was no such noise. Probably, Franz thought that he would take the advantage of the confusion and noise, and he would sneak into his place, into his desk, without being noticed by anyone. But today, the school was as quiet as Sunday morning. So he peeped through the window and found that his classmates were already seated in their places, and M. Hamill was walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. And little Franz had to open the door and go in before everybody. And he was scared that M. Hamel was going to scold him. He was terribly frightened and blushing. But nothing of that sort happened. When M. Hamel saw Franz, he rather said very kindly, "Go to your place, little Franz. We were beginning without you." So in fact, it seemed as if the entire class was waiting for little Franz to arrive. Immediately, he jumped over the bench, sat down at his place, and then, when he had got over his pride, he looked at his teacher. The teacher looked different. The teacher was wearing a beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, little black silk cap, all embroidered. And this sort of special dress the teacher wore on special occasions like inspection or prize days. So was there something special? Besides, the whole school looked very strange, looked very calm. But the thing that surprised Franz most was to see that the last back benches, which were always empty, the village elders, they were occupying the seats, and they were sitting very quietly, like the old hawser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several others besides. So these elderly people of the village, they were occupying the last benches of the class. Everybody looked sad, and Hauser had brought an old primer, thumbed at the edges, and he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the pages. So the Hauser had also brought his old primer, and it was opened up on his knees, and he was wearing the spectacles as if he was in a mood to learn. He had come to learn in the class that day. While I was wondering about it all, Franz was wondering what is special about the class today. M. Hamel mounted his chair. He sat on his chair. He occupied his chair, probably which was on a raised platform, and in the same grave and gentle tone which he had used to me, said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you." In a very solemn, sober voice, calm voice, Mr. M. Hamel said that this is the last lesson I am going to give you. Why? The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive. So this was what the teacher was saying. As France had been defeated in the Franco-Prussian War, the two territories of France, Alsace and Lorraine, they had passed on to Germany, to Prussia. So the order had come from Berlin that instead of French language, German language was going to be taught in these schools. And the new master was going to take over to teach German to the people of Alsace and Lorraine. So the teacher said that this is going to be the last French lesson. And I want you all to be very attentive. What a thunderclap these words were to me. They were like a thunderclap. They were a shock for little Franz. Oh, the wretches that was what they had put up at the town hall. Now he realized probably this was the news that was displayed on the bulletin board. My last French lesson? Why, I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. So these thoughts occupied his mind. It was his last French lesson. He had hardly learned how to write, and now he shall never be able to learn his own language. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking birds' eggs, or going sliding on the Saar. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints, were old friends now that I couldn't give up. And M. Hamel too, the idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. So Franz was realizing that he had wasted his time by spending days outdoors in useless activities like looking for birds' eggs or sliding on the Saar. And his books were a burden for him. The lessons of grammar, the history of sense were now his old friends. He really wanted to be with them. He was not ready to give up his own language. And even he realized how his teacher, who was now going away, he would never be able to see his teacher again. And he forgot all about his beatings and how he thought his teacher to be mad earlier. He regretted, he was full of regret for not listening to his teacher, for not paying attention to his lessons and whiling away his time in useless activities. And the moment has come when he's not mastered his own language. Poor man! It was in honor of this last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes, and now I understood why the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room. The realization why the teacher was wearing those fine clothes. Probably it was his last lesson, and the old men of the village, they had come to the class, to the school, to pay their respects to the teacher for his remarkable service. It was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and of showing their respect for the country that was theirs no more. So the village elders had come as a mark of respect to pay their respect, honor, tribute to the teacher for his 40 years of faithful service and for showing respect to their country, which was no more theirs now. It was in the hands of the Germans. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. Would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through, very loud and clear, and without one mistake? But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there, holding on to my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. So at this time he heard his name being called, and he was supposed to speak out the rule of participle. Although he knew few things and could have said, but then he was not able to speak out anything. And he was terribly scared what was going to happen now. I heard M. Hamel say to me, I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time. I will learn it tomorrow. So Mr. M. Hamel did not scold him, but said that, see, this is how we postpone our studies. Thinking that there is plenty of time, we can do it the next day. But the time has it has flown away, and there is no time now to learn French language. We stop here and we'll continue with this in tomorrow's class. Thank you, class.